Hey, welcome to the conversation. You're with Andy Mason, and this is the Heaven and Business podcast. We are all about helping you navigate the messy intersection of faith, family, and business. And I've got a special guest with me today. His name's Ford Taylor. He's a good friend who I trust. And actually, what happened is 2 weeks ago, we posted a podcast all about Samson and the just incredible failure of successive leaders in the Bible, and I was overlaying that with this book, How the Mighty Fall by Jim Collins. If you haven't read it, this is what it looks like. Grab a copy. Super, super helpful. You don't want to be in this book. And the other book is Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud, which talks about vision, focus, and intentional pruning so that you don't end up in this book, How the Mighty Fall. Well, Ford Taylor is a personal friend, very, very successful from every right in terms of a business consultant, leader in organizational management, and in marriage counseling. There's another one. Personally benefited from that. And he wrote this book, Relational Leadership, which if you haven't got this, this is my go-to book for how to build a culture of honor in your workplace, deal with organizational growth, personal vision, and discipline. Super practical, super helpful. Well, Ford reaches out and says, Andy, thanks for sharing that podcast. The fact that he listened to it was super cool. But then he said, I've got an example of that for you if you would like. And I just said, wow, I would love to hear it. So for you listening to this, this is a super valuable treat that someone would put their hand up and say, I was actually in that book, but I wasn't in the book because I didn't know about the book. And here's it practically walked out. What are we talking about? How simple it is and how scarily common it is for wonderful leaders and wonderful companies to fail, the process that happens, and how most of us have no idea when we're in the middle of it, which is called a slow drift to failure. So Ford Taylor, thank you so much for joining us. It's just such an honor to be able to call you friend.
Well, Andy, thank you for having me. I was thinking about you earlier today, and there's so many words that come to mind, but one of them is just a flat tank filler.
Tank,
You know,
a flat tank filler?
it's come on, I'm from Texas. It's
Yeah.
flat, a tank filler. It's just a
Thank
word,
you.
okay?
Thank you.
And whether it's on the phone, a Zoom, a fishing trip, in your home with your family, doing a conference together, you just fill my tank, and it's just I always look. It doesn't matter when, where, how. Every single time. I look forward to our times together. So thank you for not just filling my tank, but so many other people that you're filling their tanks. You're a blessing, my friend.
I
And I'm honored
appreciate it.
that we are able to call each other friend. Absolutely.
Thank you, Ford. I just really appreciate that. So, how would you, for those that haven't heard of you, give us a little bit of a snapshot of who you are. And knowing Ford, he jumps usually into the failures. I don't want you to talk about any of the failures. Talk about if someone's listening to this and they are full gear, 100 miles an hour, answer them how you would answer from what's the credibility for Ford to speak as a business leader?
Well, I won't jump into the failures because you asked me not to.
Correct?
Those are a lot of what give me credibility to speak as a leader, okay? Because so much of what I do now, as you know, we grew this company back in the 90s. It was a $300 million company. It was the number one in our industry. In America, for sure, people said at that time it was probably in the world. A lot of successes, some failures that went with it. And, from those, now I'm blessed really to be able to take those failures and those successes and be able to take all those skill sets, if you will, the practical, implementable biblical principles, and apply them in people's personal lives, their businesses, their schools, churches, marriages, and be able to share those with people from a failure and a success. And as you know, Andy, our hope and everything we do is that if anybody's had any of the kind of failures that I or our team have had, that we can keep them, can help them get through it. And if they haven't had them, hopefully our stories will help them not have them.
Yeah.
In either case, be able to give them a platform to leap forward, either getting through that failure to the other side or stopping it before it happens to help them be more successful.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. So, Ford didn't outline it as much, but he is a business consultant, author, podcaster, happily married man to a wonderful, wonderful woman, a bunch of kids, grandkids, and just coming. And one of the things that I've personally seen him do, we've had him speak at Heaven and Business conferences because of what he brings, but also got to work alongside Ford, doing some transformational workshops and coming into a company and seeing him firsthand work with that company in a high emotional, high tension situation, multi-million dollar company that then adapted what he teaches because it's not just teaching, it's real lived out. So, Ford, that's enough of the introduction. Let's just dive right into this. For those that are not aware, I'm just going to highlight this book, How the Mighty Fall. It says, and why some companies never give in. Jim Collins, it's data-driven research about some of the companies that you've heard the names of. They ended up in obscurity. How did that happen? He researched it and he found a repeated process of failure, of drift into decay. And so I'm going to highlight what those are. And then Ford's actually going to walk us through a case study using himself, which I just feel incredibly humbled that you would do that. So here they are. Collins outlines 5 stages of decline observed in once great companies. Number 1, hubris born of success. That's pride. Success leads to arrogance. Leaders forget the true cause of greatness and stop learning. Now, this is reversible. Listen to that. It's like if you stop learning, you're on the path, slippery slope. Stage 2, undisciplined pursuit of more. Overreaching ambition causes reckless expansion. Growth becomes unfocused and quality declines. It's like we're so awesome, we can do anything, let's do more. Stage 3, denial of risk and peril. Warning signs appear, but leaders downplay or ignore them. They blame external factors and silence bad news. Echo chamber, classic. Stage 4, grasping for salvation. Crisis hits, leaders panic and chase quick fixes. Grab a new leader, flashy strategy. Discipline and focus are abandoned. And stage 5, capitulation to irrelevance and death. The organization runs out of resources, loses hope, and either dies or fades into irrelevance. The message is really clear. If you don't initiate necessary endings, you'll end up in a crisis. Pruning is essential. So, Ford, unpack this for us.
Okay. Well, one of the reasons I love your podcast, but this one I love that, if Samson had cut his own hair. I didn't cut my own hair, Andy.
Yeah.
I eventually did, but it took a long time. And so, when you talk about stage 1, born of success, for 9 years, we took a company that was about to go bankrupt and turned it around. And then I started buying bankrupt companies and was having success in turning them around. And I put a management team in place, then go buy another one.
So,
And
pause, Ford, on that. So, actually, you were benefiting from the people that went through the book. You were benefiting from people that had done that process themselves. And to be fair, the first one that you did, that own company, it actually worked really well. I mean, to grow to what it was that, would that be fair to say?
yeah, it'd be fair to say that for a season, and as I walk through this, you're going to see when we shifted in one of these steps, one of these stages, that all we bought originally was broken companies that were, I called it, had one foot in the door of bankruptcy. Didn't want to buy any that were bankrupt because they're too hard to get out, but had one foot in the door. And then we'd go in and put these practical things in place and put a management team in place, and things were going well. And um, and that was going really well. Then all of a sudden, I get a phone call from an investment group saying, "We'd like to buy your company." Well, at that point, you start feeling pretty good about yourself, right?
How
And
old were you at the time, Ford?
let's see, I started when I was 25, so it would have been 33.
Yeah.
So,
And it's
uh,
just growing. There is just like, I mean, there's challenges with growth, but
right.
you're just growing like crazy.
All right. So for me, that's when most of this really started.
Okay.
I would say, did I have pride and arrogance even in those first 8 or 9 years? Absolutely, 100%. Did I have it the way it turned into later? I don't think so. Maybe it was a blind spot, but I don't think so. But as they, said, so they called and said, we want to buy your company. And I had felt a call by God to go do city reaching stuff when I was 17. And then again, when I was during this season. So I thought, great, I'm going to sell my company and go answer that call.
Yeah.
And then they called back and said, we've changed our minds. We don't really want to buy your company. And this is where arrogance really gets started. We want to buy you, and we want you to stay. And we're going to give you full price, but we want you to keep 20% of your company, sell us 80, and then let's keep going. So I would say that was the beginning. And obviously the beginning started at birth. But the problem with me is all these people that I was working with were now, except for one, were much older than me. And I wanted to learn from them.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you where arrogance kicks in is when you say, I'm smarter than all you guys, and I'm proving it every day because your company's not doing near as well as mine. And so at all the board meetings and stuff, I'd make that very clear to the point that one of them came and met with me and said, can I give you some feedback? And I said, yes. And they said, we've all talked and we want you to be our CEO, but we could never work for you. And I said, why? And they said, we've never seen this in all the years we've known you with anybody but us. But in these board meetings, when we say something you think is stupid, you'll do things like roll your eyes, cross your arms, blow your breath out. And I cried, Andy, because I didn't know I was doing that to them.
Oh, wow.
I did stop doing it. And then about 6 months later, the chairman of the investment company, we were having a board meeting, and he pulls me off to the side and says, um, are you feeling okay today? And I said, I am. Why do you ask? He said, because I make 90% of my decisions based on your facial expressions. And today you're not telling me anything. Well, there's another level of arrogance, right? I mean, so here's the guy, he's looking at me, even though I don't think they're looking at me. But during all this, my insecurity was at about 99.9%.
Hang on a moment. You're from Texas. I didn't think people in Texas had insecurity.
Well, that's because insecurity shows up as arrogance, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have a lot of
And
insecurity.
and what's the difference between confidence and arrogance?
Well, as you know today, once I did finally cut my hair, and we'll come back to that later, you've heard me pray, and I pray this multiple times daily, and I have been for close to 20 years. Give me the courage to be humble and the humility to be courageous. There's that fine balance of being confident in
Yeah.
what God's called you to do, being confident in what God gave to you because He gave it to you, and being arrogant because, like I did at one point, thought I was God's gift to business,
Yeah.
not that He had gifted me in business. That's the difference.
I like that. I like someone else said it this way. Confidence is about others. Arrogance is about me.
Yeah,
And initially it can look the same, but they have very, very different outcomes in the end.
right. And so if you look at this stage one, hubris born of success, we had a lot of that, and uh, and again, somebody comes, you're not looking to sell your company, they come after you, they're pursuing you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's, like I say, that's pretty much when it started. Well, then what happens is, you're successful. You're now buying bigger companies with someone else's money,
Yep.
and you're doing turnarounds, and you're taking companies that were $50 million companies and turning them into 75, and they're losing money when you buy them, and you're adding $10 million to the bottom line. Well, then all of a sudden you get to a point where you think you can't do anything wrong, and you quit listening to outside feedback. You start saying things like, I mean, I actually said these things, Andy. Man, I wish I could find some business person older than me that knew more about this than I did so I could find a mentor. I mean, that's just a level of arrogance that, I mean, I literally would say those things out loud. Why is it that I know so much more than these people about this business? They've been in it for 20 years longer than me. And again, I didn't think that was arrogance. I mean, I wouldn't, I just thought I was being real.
Yeah.
But I mean, can you think of a much more confident statement? I mean, arrogant statement than that?
What at that time, so we're in like stage one, hubris born of success. Success, success, success. It attracts attention, and you don't know what's in you until that happens. And people listening to this saying, yeah, that would never happen to me. You're probably the most likely because that comment by itself is arrogant.
Mhm.
Then the undisciplined pursuit of more and more and more. Was there any other things around you that could be, what speed bumps, road bumps, indicators that this was going on? Family, friends?
Okay, so once we did this deal, I started traveling a lot. And so I left my wife and family. I was gone like 50 weeks a year.
Ooh.
And again, I could do no wrong, right? I mean, and so I was killing my family. I was destroying them. And again, we don't have time for this on the podcast, but if my 6-year-old daughter had not asked me a question at midnight on a Friday night when I got home, I probably wouldn't be on this planet anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was killing everybody.
You're
And then,
gone during the week and back in the weekend.
right.
Yeah.
And then part of the pursuit of more, this is going to sound a little bit crazy. It was not my pursuit. My wife will tell you that one of the reasons she married me is I never really cared about stuff. I didn't then, I still don't now. But the pursuit of more for me was to gain the respect and appreciation of now we had stockholders. When it was just me, I didn't have to worry about any of that. But so for me, the pursuit of more was getting their recognition. It wasn't for more stuff. I've never
Yeah.
cared about stuff. To this day, I don't care about stuff. I didn't back then. And so for me, whether it's a pursuit of more stuff, more money, it's still a pursuit of more of something.
Yeah.
And for me, the pursuit was recognition.
Yeah.
For them to finally at some point acknowledge that I'm smart enough. Well, they did. And so they finally, after this meeting, they came to me and said, thanks for you changing your facial expressions and honoring us. We now want you to be our boss. And so that just made it, even more. So now I'm one of the team, running my own company, still growing it, but now I'm the boss of all these guys older than me.
Wow.
They asked me to be their CEO. Um, and then, things started happening. Uh, we started denying the risk of what was going on around us to the point, Andy, that they wanted to start buying successful companies. Okay. And I literally was saying we should not buy successful companies. I don't know if I know how to integrate them. In other words, I don't know if they'll listen to me. If they're already successful,
Yeah. They
they
don't,
may
who
not
listens?
buy in, they
Yeah.
may not find our culture. And literally they would respond. You ready? Again, you want to, I mean, if we'd done this podcast back then, my head wouldn't fit on the screen. I mean, they would say, we've never seen a person or a company that you couldn't work with. They don't exist. Let's do this. Well, we actually voted, and it was a 6-1 vote to buy two successful companies. I was the only one that voted against it.
But now they own you and you're thinking it's about, so if I'm guessing you're starving for value and what I would say a father's blessing is identity. They don't care about you. They just care about what you can do for them, which is transactional. It's, oh man, you should have read this book here, Ford Taylor. It's called Relational Leadership. Oh,
I,
you were writing it.
I should have read. Yeah, I was living it before I could write it,
Yeah.
Andy. Well, then what happened? So then they say, look, you don't have to do any of the due diligence. You just keep running the companies. We'll take care of everything. Well, then they brought me some information on the profitability of a company. And I looked at it and I just said to them, this is not possible. There's no chance that there is a company out there that can buy product this much cheaper than we're buying it.
Right.
And they said, you're just jealous. In other words, my arrogance now was now getting me where I'm not listened to. So now I moved from the guy that they were all listening to out of all this arrogance and insecurity to the person that now you're just jealous because they can do this.
Yeah, but they don't want to hear that. So
Right.
we are full bore into stage three, denial of risk and peril. Warning signs are appearing, but leaders downplay or ignore them, and they blame external factors and silence bad news.
So we go on this fundraising, and again, these numbers were back in the 80s and 90s, I mean the 90s, most of them. So that these are real numbers back then. And so, we went on this 28 presentation tour to raise $100 million.
Yeah.
And again, that would be probably a half a billion now. I mean, I don't, we'd have
Yeah.
to put it together. But anyway, and so the chairman, I'm making all these presentations, and he says to me, the next one is in the city where he lived. So he was going to make that one to show me how to do it.
Okay.
Okay. So I wasn't the only one on the team that had a little bit of arrogance going on. Anyway, so in the end,
So
You know,
hang on a moment, Ford. I mean, you like putting the book alongside you is just right there, but you're in the middle of it. You're actually kind of saying, "Hey guys, I'm not so sure about this," but then you're just rolling with it. So
yeah.
was there any pause on the inside of Ford?
Yeah, there were a number of pauses where I went to board meetings with my letter of resignation, um, to try to put a stop to some of this. And every time before I could present it, one of the guys, I would tell him, I got my letter with me today. This is just crazy. And then I would leave the room. They'd make a different decision. I would come back in and he'd say, he would grab my hand and tell me to get your letter out. And so I had paused many steps along the way. But then, Andy, I made a big mistake, a huge mistake. And that was getting in a relationship outside my marriage.
Yeah.
Okay. Then all of a sudden, I'm now really stuck, right? Now, what if everybody finds out this? And so now I'm pretty much willing to do anything I'm told to do because I had so many secrets to hide that I couldn't let anybody know how bad I was hurting. This was where the pride really was, Andy. I was hurting.
Yeah.
I was tired. I was worn out. As you know, I wrote a suicide letter at one point. I was holding a gun in my hand, and pride would not let me reach out to anybody for help personally. And so
Wow.
on the business side, I was giving warning that you can't make product this cheap. Well, they went ahead and bought the company anyway. And then when we bought it and I start looking into it, we find out that there's a reason they're making product this cheap and it's against the law. And so I say, I'm not going to go to jail for you. Okay. Well, in the middle of all this, I had told this company that I wanted to step down as the CEO and just be the number two person. And I told the board that, and they agreed to do that. And part of the reason is because of my secrets and because of where I was, I couldn't fight the fight anymore.
Yeah.
And so I have to be careful when I tell this story. It can come across as it's their fault, but
Yeah.
it's not. Because if I had not been living this secret lifestyle and got myself in such a state of depression, I would have been able to continue to fight the good business, logical fights. And so I don't blame them for that. Okay. And so when I told them that I wanted to step down, they said, okay. And then they had a board meeting without me and then came and said, if you don't want to be CEO, we don't need you anymore. And so they handed me my parachute clause. And so this goes down to that stage four, where they're
Grasping.
grasping for a different answer. In other words, if Ford can't do this anymore, we're going to go find someone that can. And I'm still staying around. I'm still offering to help. And then when that happened, the guy came in and he made it. The first toast was, let's toast to the fact that we'll never have another CEO. We were public by then, that we'll never have another CEO that doesn't serve alcohol to its customers and employees again. And so you can imagine what started happening to the culture at that point, that immediately they toasted me out the door. And again, if you'll, I have to finish the story because it can sound like I'm blaming them, and I am not.
Yeah.
You got to hear, I was the problem. I want people to hear this. My arrogance led me to do something that I swore I'd never do outside my marriage. My arrogance kept me from reaching out to anybody for help. Okay. My success of buying all these broken companies and have a 100% success rate
Yeah.
led to that arrogance, the insecurity inside, not willing to share, why I felt so insecure, the sexual abuse as a kid. I mean, not sharing those things, trying to fight through those things myself. So then they make that decision. I go suicidal because my whole self-identity is tied up
It's
in the company.
collapsed. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then within just a few months, the new culture started going downhill.
Yeah.
So they bring two turnaround guys in, and I was told within a month of them coming in that they went to the top guys and said, let's get this straight. You had someone here that 2,000 employees loved. He wanted to be here. He wanted to be number two, not number one. And you told him no. And they said, I'll tell you the rest of this in a minute, because I'm telling you, if I hadn't been in such bad shape, I
Yeah.
don't think it would
Yeah.
ever happen. Um, and they said they screwed up. But later, so crisis hit, they reached out. That guy changed the culture. They brought in turnaround guys. They didn't know what to do.
Flashy strategies.
So crashing strategies, buying successful companies. We didn't know how to do it. We knew how to buy broken companies. We didn't know how to buy successful ones. But that's the grasping for more.
Yeah.
We're already dominating. We're gonna super dominate this industry.
Yeah.
Well, just to really put a nail in this is a few months later when I heard all this, because I wasn't there anymore, that the company wasn't doing well, I called and asked the guy that made the decision for me not to be there. I said, could I ask you a question? And he said, yes. And then I'll have an offer for you. And I said, could you tell me why, when I wanted to stay, it's the number two and pass the torch to the new guy so this wouldn't happen?
Yeah.
You tell me why y'all just said no. His answer was, because of all your arrogance, we did not believe you. We
Wow.
did not believe that you could be number two.
Yeah, because you were the man.
And so they didn't think I could step down. And again, they had no idea the shape I was in. They
Yeah.
had no
Yeah.
idea I was taking antidepressants and psychiatrists. Again, if I had shared that with them, they probably would have said, okay, let us help you through this and we'll come out the other side.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, I have an offer for you. And they said, what is it? I said, there's a couple thousand families at risk here. I do not want the job back. I don't trust you. I said, I don't trust you or them anymore. But if you want my help, I'll come back and help. And he said to me, I wish I could ask you back. And I said, why? He said, I went to the board and told them, I don't know of anybody else in the world. And again, just pumped my head up again. I mean, again, because I had not dealt with this
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
But I went to them and told them um, that I only know of one person on this planet that can fix this. And I asked to be allowed to bring you back. And they told me, you made your effing bed, lie in it. And so, because of double arrogance,
Yep.
the
On
company,
every side.
it ended up completely crashing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the rest of the story is they eventually had to break the public company down into individual components. And so, the bright side of the story is all those companies that we started with the right
The
foundation,
the originals. Yep.
the originals with the right foundation, God in the center, employees come first, customers come second. All these things that I teach now, all those companies are thriving and successful. And so, I guess the message to the audience is those principles, when we stay out of the way, and those things that do make us successful that are probably biblical principles, they still work even on the other side of a
Yeah.
crash.
Yeah.
Now, as you know, Andy, as I started doing the work I do now, uh, I did I did share with Sandra the mistakes I'd made,
Yep. That's
and
your
when I
wife. Yeah.
yes, and when I teared up a while ago, I did eventually cut my hair.
Yeah.
I did eventually sit down with her, share everything I'd done, believing she was going to leave me. You've met her, you know who she is, and
Yeah.
she on the spot said, "I love you, I forgive you, we'll get through this." So I saw Jesus right in the eye that day. But just want you to know that when I saw your podcast, as you know, we're about to do some things that I have been fighting for 25 years because I've not wanted my name on anything, but I've been convinced to let these people put my name back on things. And I just want you to know that I sent your podcast to our team. I
Wow.
said, guys, you all know for 25 years, I've said no, no, no to using my name. I'm now believing, including you, because I ask you and ask you to pray about it, that God's saying it's okay.
Yeah.
I said, please listen to this podcast. And if you ever see that Ford Taylor again, not cutting his own hair, I'm just begging you to bring me a pair of scissors.
Well, I got one thing better than a pair of scissors, Ford. I'm just gonna grab
A
it.
baseball bat. I got mine too. I know what you're going to grab. You're going to grab that baseball bat. I
I got
love
I got
this.
this. If you people
I
can't see
know.
this,
I know. I got
I
it
got
too.
this thing. It's a basic. This is called a genuine Louisville Slugger. And if
Okay.
people can't see, there's a signature on this. Well, it's kind of funny. We named ourselves Team Titan. The Titans. We won't get into that.
Mhm.
But there's a bunch of names on here, and one of them is Ford Taylor. That's your signature. Is that your signature there, Ford
That
Taylor?
is that is my signature, and my bat is in our house in Texas. I'm in Ohio right now, but I've got my bat.
And
Absolutely.
I think the reason we did this is actually, it's probably influenced by this book. But I was in a group that we catalyzed, just got together a group of guys from across the country to recognize the very thing that helps you succeed in business is vision, focus, drive, ambition. Not bad, but that without a strong check, someone strong enough that loves you enough to speak the truth. Someone says that would stab me in the front, not stab me in the back. True friends will stab you in the front and say, so that's what we know we needed a baseball bat covenant is what we called it, which is I got one of these, you got one of these because that works both way forward.
Yes, it
I,
does.
so thank you. And I just love and agree with that. Let's just go off script here. I mean, firstly, for anybody recognizing this in their life, I mean, the beauty is God resists the proud. God will resist you. And the stuff inside you, enough pressure will bring it out. But He promotes the humble. So humble yourself before the mighty hand of God, and He forgives you, cleans you, and causes you to stand up better, stronger than before. It's miraculous. What would you add anything to that in terms of people recognizing, oh my gosh, I'm on that path. How do I get off it?
Yeah, the biggest thing I'd say is, if you do read the book, there's a concept we teach called bumper buddies.
Yep.
You surround your people it's all based on love and trust.
Yep.
It's not accountability partners. Accountability partners, that's your spouse, that's your boss. They can hold your coach. They can hold you accountable. Your sports coach. These are people that it's built on love. In other words, you trust them enough that you can share anything in the world with them, anything, and they love you enough to tell you if you got lettuce in your teeth. I mean, they love you enough to say, is there a blind spot? And so, what I've learned, Andy, over these years is I ask people I ask my wife on a regular basis, honey, what else is there? You know
Yep.
me better than anybody. Tell me what needs to be changed next. And so I ask a lot of people, including you, with your baseball bat, or you don't typically have to use it only a couple of times. No, but including you, if you see something that I can't see, it's called a blind spot. Please don't waste any time.
Yep.
Please don't let me go back. Don't let me do. I've got that t-shirt. I don't want that t-shirt again. And so if you don't have that t-shirt yet, that one that arrogance led to fall,
Yep.
best thing I can share with you is stay in the word, stay close to God,
Yep.
bring others close to you, built on love and trust, that love you enough to tell you the truth, and you trust them enough to share when you need help.
Yep.
If you do those things, there's a high chance that you won't go through these 5 stages.
Yep. And super practical. Get the book. Don't get the book How the Mighty Fall, because that's the pathway to failure. Get the book Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud, and then do it. It's about setting those things up that Ford has talked about. Get a hold of relational leadership. And then the language, Ford, that you give is really helpful. And if I was going to give some feedback to Ford, this is someone that I've walked with, I'd still go, hey, Ford, do you trust that I believe in you?
I do.
Yeah. Do you believe that I love you?
I absolutely believe that beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Well, I might be wrong, and perhaps this doesn't matter. Can I give you some feedback?
Please.
And so, what you just witnessed there is a series of questions where Ford gave me permission and acknowledged the context, the framework to then for me to share something that could be difficult, painful, and hard, but I'm doing it from a heart and a desire to help him succeed. And I love what you also say, Ford, is I care about you more. I care about you more than I care about how you feel about me. And most of the time, I don't tell the truth because I'm more concerned about myself than I am about you.
Yeah. When we go in humility, which you just did, I may be wrong. Pre-forgiveness, I'm not mad at you. I'm not judging you. Love, I care more about you than I care about how you care about me. And 100% of the truth. We don't hold anything back, because if we hold something back, then we always see that person through the lens of what we held back.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know of a greater love on the planet other than Jesus that we could show each other than giving that kind of feedback.
So good. So I don't think we have time on this call to do this, but for those that are listening and are still listening, I told you what to do. Grab the book. Don't hesitate to reach out. You can email us. You can put comments below. Share this with people that need to hear it. Our desire is that you don't end up in the book, How the Mighty Fall, but that you end up in the book, Necessary Endings. And we may never know your story, but to know that our lives help people succeed. But here is the bonus content. The bonus content is found in the Bible, which is the best book, business book, life book, success book in all eternity. And this is found in Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 16. And I stole this off a friend of mine who's a very established business leader. He asked me what was the original sin. And we think it's pride. But there's one thing for all you business leaders that goes in behind it, which is this. Now, this is talking of Lucifer, who was the archangel, became Satan. You can't get closer to God than that. And this is what it says. Verse 16, through the abundance of your commerce or trading or business, you were filled with lawlessness and violence, and you sinned. Therefore, I cast you out as a profane thing from the mountain of God. And I'm just like, there's so much to unpack there. We don't have to on this call. Anybody that's interested, reach out. We might have to unpack it another time, but go back and have a look at that. Especially, there is something about getting wins under your belt, doing deals and more deals, living for the deal that actually ends up in violence and pride. So full on. Okay, Ford, we better pray. Would you be willing to pray for people as we launch them?
I would. You okay if I pray our prayer covenant?
Absolutely.
I know it's a little bit long. On the Ezekiel thing, if you ever want to go there, just a side note on that, I believe as I read Ezekiel and those scriptures that there is a high chance that Satan himself is sitting in control of the mountain, sphere, river, stream, sector, whatever you want, that he himself, I think you take him down, you take that one down, you take him down.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I so appreciate you saying that. Father, we love you. We honor you. Jesus, we adore you. Jesus, anybody who may still be listening, I ask that right now that your manifest presence would fall on them wherever they're sitting or standing, that you would fall in their room and fall on us now. Father, thank you for making Andy and me and those listening, each one of your dearly loved children. Jesus, be the Lord of our life today in new ways. Reveal the fullness of your majesty at the Father's right hand. Honor and glorify yourself by living in and through each one of us. Change us any way you want. Wash us clean of every sin. Keep us from evil that we would not cause pain to each other. Give us the courage to be humble, the humility to be courageous. Continue to teach us how to love and forgive unconditionally. Fill us with your wisdom, discernment, knowledge, and understanding. Give us an insatiable thirst and uncontrollable hunger for you, your word, and your ways. That each one of us would be walking, breathing instruments of your love, grace, mercy, truth, justice, and righteousness. In Jesus, one day we might be the answer to your prayer. They would walk together as one and show others how to walk together as one. And the world would know, see, and believe that the Father sent you and that you sent us. And that today, tomorrow, and every day, that each one of us might be the answer to someone else's prayer. That we be the miracle you would use in someone's life to help them in a way that would draw them closer to you or even find your son. And tonight, when we lay our heads down, Jesus, that somehow, some way, we might be just a little bit more like you than we were this morning when we woke up. And tomorrow morning be just a little bit more like you than we are tonight. And Father, for every person listening, like the Masons being such a good example, that as they strive, as they go far, as they live and pray for the unity that you called us to, in their families, their neighborhoods, businesses, churches, ministries, schools, governments, wherever they live, work, and play, that as they go for that kind of unity, that you would command your blessing
Yeah.
in every part of their lives, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, in every way. Thank you for hearing every prayer. We love you, we worship you, and we honor you. And we ask these things in the name of Yahweh, in the mighty name of Yeshua, and in the power of your Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.